Hello everyone, welcome to the session Object-Oriented Programming through Java. Myself Navya, I'm an assistant professor from the department of CSIT in the Malad Institutions of Technology. So today we are going to discuss the topic of multi-threading in Java. In this session, we are going to discuss how you are going to create a new thread in Java. In previous session, we have seen what is multi-threading and what is the difference between a process-based multitasking and thread-based multitasking, and what are the benefits and non-benefits, disadvantages and advantages of a thread. And here in this session, how you are going to create a new thread, we are going to see. And the ways you are going to create a new thread by extending a thread class with an example program, and the second method is implementing runnable interface with an example program. This is what we are going to see in this present session. So, how you are going to create a new thread in Java programming language. Here we already seen a thread is a lightweight process. In Java program, we can execute a thread by calling its main thread. So, in every Java program executes by a thread called the main thread. So, one thread will be executed always, that thread is called as main thread. So, when a Java program gets executed, the main thread created automatically by itself and it would be executed. And all the other threads are called from the main thread. Here Java programming provides two methods or two techniques to create threads. One is using thread class. So, there was a built-in class called thread. This is a built-in class. Okay. By extending, your class has to be extended by thread. By extending the thread class, you can create new threads. Or the second technique or the second method is using runnable interfacing. So, as it was an interface, you have to implement it. You can implement runnable interface in order to create a new thread. So, this was the first method by extending a thread class. How we are going to extend a thread class? So, I already said you there was a built-in class called thread. Inside the package java.lang, which is automatically included to our every program, and the thread class consists all the methods related to this particular thread. And to create a thread using thread class, we have to follow these steps. The first step is you have to create a child of thread class, which means you have to extend, your class has to be extended with a thread class. And the second step is you have to override the run method. So, there was already run method here, but you have to override the method, and in run method you have to write down the code what that thread has to be done. Okay. So, override the run method with the code, and that is to be executed by the thread, and it must be public while overriding. And the third step is you have to create an object for newly created class in main method. You have to create an object to this particular child class in the main method, and you have to call the start method. So, you have to call the start method. So, you are using that object which is created for the child class. You no need to call the run method, because when you call, if you are creating an object for the thread and if you call start method, it automatically calls the run method. Okay. There is no separately you cannot or it's not necessary to call the run method. Okay. So, here this was an example program. I am calling a sample thread. So, this is my sample thread that extends thread. Okay, and I am overriding the run method, and this run method should be public. And here whatever I need the code to be executed in this particular thread, I am writing here. So, thread is under running and I am just printing the 1 to 10 values here. Okay. Now here this is my class which consists of main method, my thread test, and here I am creating a object to the sample thread. I am creating an object to this particular class. Okay. T1 equals to new sample thread. I can start n number of threads also, and here thread is about to start, and here I am calling start method. I am not calling the run method. Here I am calling just we start method and we close it. That's it. So it will directly calls the run method and it executes this particular code. So let us execute this and let us see. So this is my program which we have seen just now. So I has to save this by my thread test, isn't it? My thread test.java. Java C my thread test.java. Java my thread test. See here, what is thread about? Thread is about to start and thread is under running, as well as I am printing I equals to 1 to 10. So this is how a thread will be executed, and this is how a new thread is created by extending a thread class. Okay. Now going to the second one. By implementing the second method is by implementing runnable interface, you can create a new thread. Okay. So here this is an built-in interface. Runnable is a built-in interface. It's a built-in interface which is inside the same package, java.lang package, and this runnable interface is implemented by thread class. Okay. And that contains all the methods related to threads. So in order to create a thread using runnable interface, you have to follow this step. The step 1 is you have to create a class that should implement the runnable interface. Okay. And you have to override the run method, so that whatever the code you need to execute for particular thread, what was the action to be done, that should be written in run method, and it should be public, the same thing. And third one, you have to create the object for this particular class and in the main method. And next you have to create a thread the thread class object by passing the above created object as a parameter to the thread class constructor. And the last you have to call the start method in order to run the particular thread. So let us see an example program here. So the first point is you have to create a class that should be implemented runnable interface. Okay. And you have to override the run method, and the run method should be in public only. And I have written the code. I just want to print the same 1 to 10, and I'm written the same thing. But here it should be public. Whatever the code I want to run using thread, I have to write here. And next, this class is completed till here. And next, my thread test. So here I have a main method in this. Here sample thread, I have to create the object for sample thread. This was a thread object. Thread object is a class of that, and I have to create a new thread. I have to pass this as a parameter to the thread constructor. This is what the difference between while you are extending a thread class, or if you are implementing the runnable interface, this has to be mandatory. And using this thread only, you are going to call the run method, and thread is about to start, and next I am calling thread.start. This will implement this method. Okay. So let us see this running. So I have taken this as my thread demo. See here, when I call this, the thread is about to start and the thread is under running, and I have this thread will be executed at this time. This is how you are going to create a new thread using by implementing the runnable interface. So here in today's session, what you have learned, how you are going to create a thread. So there are two ways to create a thread, isn't it? The first one, you can create a thread by extending thread class, and the second method is you can implement by implementing runnable interface. You can create a new thread. So by extending a thread class, you can create a new thread, and by implementing runnable interface, you can create a new thread. So what are the steps undergo with thread? First, you have to create a child class to child class that extends thread class, isn't it? Here a child class which implements runnable interface, and you have to override run method, and it should be public. And here you have to override run method and it should be a public. And the third point, in main you have to create object to this particular class, child class A, for example, A in main method. Same here also, you have to create object to A using in main method. Okay, and the fourth step, you can execute, right, T1 object. For example, this is one object dot start method you can call. But here you have to create object to thread class by passing obj1, by passing object, this object as parameter to constructor, thread constructor. Okay, and at last you have to start obj1 dot start method, isn't it? So this is what we have learned in this class, and we have seen the example programs of these two, how you are going to create a basic thread. Thank you all.